Now for analysis, we are joined by an international law analyst, Mr. Shayan Khodadadi, live from Tehran. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Asia One, and welcome. Mr. Shayan Khodadadi, from an international law perspective, how do you assess Iran's claim that U.S. sanctions amount to economic war?
Iran's description of the sanctions on Iran as the economic war, I believe that it's fully justified. The United States is openly saying that it wants to cut every economic lifeline available to Iran and destroy the Iranian economy and force the Iranian nation to surrender. Of course, Washington itself has described its new campaign as an economic onslaught. Therefore, this is not a normal diplomacy, and it is not a limited sanctions policy. These measures target Iran's oil exports, banking system, shipping, aviation, technology, and international trade. They also threaten others to conduct lawful trade with Iran. Most importantly, the real victims are ordinary Iranian citizens, because sanctions increase the cost of medicine, food, and other basic necessities. From Iran's perspective, this is a form of collective punishment and a serious violation of the principles of sovereignty, non-intervention. The United States first tried military aggression, failed to force Iran to surrender. Now it is continuing the same war through economic. Therefore, the Iranian position is very clear. Sanctions are not an alternative to war. Under the present circumstances, they are another instrument of the same war against the Iranian nation.
All right, look, we'll talk a little bit here now about Iran. Well, Iran says Washington must take the further Islamabad MOU. What legal or diplomatic commitments is Tehran seeking here?
Well, that's a very good question. Iran is not asking for a favor. It is asking the United States to fulfill the commitments it already accepted under the Islam, establish the clear sequence. Before negotiation on final agreements could begin, Washington was required to take several practical measures. These included ending the naval blockade, stopping new sanctions, restoring waivers for Iranian oil exporters, and making Iran's frozen assets available. However, instead of implementing these commitments, the United States has introduced a new sanctions campaign and continued its threatening and the provisions of the Islamabad Memorandum. Iran's message is therefore responsible and clear. Washington must change its tone and to negotiate under blockade threats and economic pressure.